right now. Whatever that is. Whatever that is.
We need a drummer.
I know. Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Guitarsenal, and today we're going to be doing another tone talk for you. If you made it past our horrible intro there, we're trying to just sort of play around in the intros, and we've known that tune there for maybe all of about 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
we just made that up just to play around with, and you know, it's kind of one of those things where you either choose to leave it in the bag of tricks or not. And that could be one that we just forget we ever heard and played or whatever. But anyway,
we'll never forget because it's on the internet.
It's on the internet forever now. Okay. Hey, we have a little bit of fun. But we're going to do a tone talk today. And in case you guys don't know, tone talk is basically where we just take a certain subject matter and just kind of spitball and have a little fun. It's very similar to other things that we do on the internet and other parts of the internet, except it's related to the music world. So in case you don't know, make sure you tune into these videos. Today we're going to be talking about sort of a recent experience. We attended our first guitar-specific show the other day.
The Dallas International Guitar Festival.
Yes, it was a big guitar show, and you know, my dad used to talk a lot in the back in the day, you know, about going to guitar shows and how you walk around with a guitar you might want to sell, and some people offer you money for it, or maybe, you know, I think in my dad's case, he had an old K. What did they call that dang guitar? Now I can't even remember. The Speedmaster, I think is what they called it. The old school, it wasn't Dan Electro guitar. I think it was an old K Speed Demon.
Speed Demon.
That's what they called them, the Speed Demon. It had those big crazy chrome pickups in it and like 6 knobs on it and everything. Well, he took that guitar to a show and the guys were offering him like $300 for the knobs. And he's like, guys, I only want $400 for the guitar. Like, you're going to give me $300 for the knobs, but like, then not give me... Well, anyway, all I knew about guitar shows was what I heard from my dad's experiences going to guitar shows over the years. And, you know, I'm sure he scored some good deals and everything. And I suppose I just want to elaborate on my experience going to my first guitar show. You know, I've been to various gun shows, and the guitar shows are set up very, very similar to really any type of big show.
It was... I mean, we didn't really know what to expect going into it. We kind of had a buddy of ours tell us about it, and it's like, hey, you're in town, you might as well go to it.
Yeah.
So it was a little expensive to get in. It's like $35 to get in.
$35 to get in, which is definitely a lot more.
But they said they had like, you know, 3 or so hundred vendors, out there, and like all kinds of guitars and basses and music gear and used stuff, like tables set up with all kinds of random stuff, just like you see at the gun shows, like random knives and gun parts and all that.
It's like a swap meet, but for guitars. So I mean, it doesn't matter if you're talking, I don't know, firearms or collectible. I don't know. Do they have shows for like collectible dolls and antiques, like antique show, or insert your collecting interest in Block A. But basically any type of large enough following, comic book shows, I'm sure they have, toys and comic shows and things like that. So it's very similar to any type of enthusiast-driven show that you would expect to go to. And I want to elaborate on a few of my experiences. And I had a bad experience and a good experience and a kind of a combination of a little bit of the above. For one thing I'll notice, one thing I observed, you can go in there and just about find any guitar you want to buy.
They had everything from like cheap used beginner guitars that were 80 or $100, all the way up to like 1952 Tellys that were 50 grand.
Yep.
And everything in between. And there's stuff you just look at, you're like, what in the world is this? They had all kinds of crazy guitars, stuff you've never seen in your
all
life.
kinds of old school effects pedals and you name it, accessories.
So cool.
One thing I noticed was that there was definitely a lack of amplifiers for sale.
Yes.
I expected to see more amplifiers.
And well, kind of sad to me, there wasn't really...
Put this on standby.
There really wasn't that many like bass guitars there either. I mean, there was a few... there were a few vendors that had nothing but basses. There was one guy, he had a few high-end like Foderos, he had some MTDs, some higher-end like Warwicks and things like that. But then there were a lot of guys that had like vintage P's and J's that were just crazy expensive. But mostly it was guitars, No banjos, no mandolins, stuff like that, really. There were some acoustics, just a handful of basses, and then mostly all freaking guitars.
Pretty much electric guitars.
Lacking on the amps, lacking on the bass amps.
I would say that in the entire show, there was probably, and maybe you can back me up or not back me up, but I would say there couldn't have been more than 40 amps in the whole building. Wouldn't you say that's an accurate statement?
Yeah, probably 40 or 50.
I would say 40 or 50 units. There wasn't a ton of amplifiers. I expected to see a lot more amps for sale.
Well, the guys that had like a good number of guitars on the racks, they might have had like 5 or 6 amps. There was that one booth down near the end that had all the vintage Gibson Les Pauls. They had a bunch of vintage Fenders, and they had a line of old blackface and silverface Fenders.
He probably
had
15
amps right there.
And if you went to a booth that had 15 amplifiers, that would have been a lot of amps in one place.
That was
so I was surprised to not see as many amplifiers for sale. I guess it's just a real pain in the butt to lug them around, and I get it. And another thing, this is kind of leading us on to door number, I guess, 3 at this point. One of my another observation. So
Eric had all the bad experiences.
So basically, I had good experience. So basically, we went in, and I told myself I'm going to set a budget to purchase an instrument today. If it's the instrument, if it's the right instrument. And I really hate that we don't have that guitar here to show them, because I don't have that instrument here. But anyway, we're going to get to, let me finish the story. So basically, I had a budget. I set myself a budget. I'd saved up some money and I'd sold off some other gear. And I had about $2,000 I was just determined I was going to spend on.
Not only a budget, but you had a guitar in mind that you were looking for.
I did have a specific guitar in mind. So I was looking for about a 1967 to maybe 1970 Guild Starfire 4. Okay, it's a guitar I've always wanted. And I was bound and determined to find one of those guitars in that place for sale. I kind of knew, about what they were selling for, about what they were worth, and I had it in my mind that, I was going to try to find one. I walked that whole guitar show about 2 times over. You know how you do when you go to a big trade show or something. You'll kind of do the quick walkthrough, and then you'll go, okay, what do I want to go take a serious look at? And then you walk it again, and then you find stuff. It's like, wait a minute, I didn't see that the first time. And you know how rapidly changing the inventory can be at these shows, because some guy might be walking by with a guitar and sell it, and you might have just walked by it and not seen it until you came by again.
There was that guy walking into the show that had that cart. He had like 2 or 3 Bandmasters on it.
Yeah.
And we saw him around the show a few times, and every time we saw him, he had one less amp.
Yep. So like, he was eventually, somebody would sell it, buy them from him. So individuals come to these shows to sell gear as well. So anyway, I walked this whole show over trying to find this fabled 67 Starfire that I've been looking for one for many years now. And I had a budget in mind, and the guitars are relatively affordable. and they're excellent instruments.
For a vintage guitar, yeah.
For a vintage guitar, they are. And especially if you compare the price of a Starfire to the price of like a Gibson ES335.
Yeah, or a Riviera. Whew.
Oh man, yeah, you're going to pay some serious money for one of those. Well, anyway, so I got walking around and I look, and sure enough, there's exactly a 1967 walnut Starfire 4 with the case.
It's like burgundy.
Oh man,
like,
it was
just
such
gorgeous.
a great looking guitar. And oddly enough, I got to talking to the guy, and the guy that was watching the booth happened to be a fan of not this channel, but our other channel. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this guy's cool. He wanted a photo, and I thought it was so neat and everything. Well, I'm like, hey, I'd like to check out this guitar. You got an amp nearby or something I can play this thing through? Oh, we don't have an amp. Okay.
Well, all right.
There's no amp to try out the guitar. Well, then he's like, well, let me get with my business partner or whatever, so to speak. Let me get with my buddy over here that, is in charge of this whole, I guess he's the money man or whatever. So his buddy walks over, and of course he's acting like we're just inconveniencing him, to check out the guitar. Well, he's like, well, what do you want to know? I'm like, well, what do you mean what do I want to know? I want to check out the guitar. I want to play it. I want to hear it. Well, they had this guy in a booth, like a couple of, just a short way down the line there. They had this other guy at the booth, some fusion player, just playing all kind of crap. I mean, it was sounding good.
He was basically demoing the guy's guitars that he builds.
The guy was demoing the guitar. So this guy walks over and says, hey, man, can we hear this guitar? This guy wants to hear it. Like, no, I don't want to hear it. I want to play it. Well, the guy plugged it in, and, he was going through the pickups. He let me hear it. But I'm like, dude, I want to play this guitar. Like, I want to hear it because I'm checking. Because the thing is, when you're shopping for a guitar, a couple of things that I look for. One, I want to hear this thing ring.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I want to hear it ring unplugged. I want to play chords all over the neck. I want to play. Listen to that. Mm-hmm. Listen to the way that guitar sustains. I mean, that's a guitar. When you can pick up an electric instrument and unplugged play it, that it's going to sound good plugged in. I'm checking for fret buzz. I'm checking for dead spots on the neck. Some guitars have dead spots that just don't play well or sound well, and it just seems like harmonically, it's like there's some weird juju going on. Guitars just have dead spots on them.
I've got a guitar like that. You play a pentatonic in C, but then you move like C sharp, and it's like nothing. It's just this, literally, it's like a black hole of sound
but dude,
on the neck.
Like this 52, when I bought this, like I picked it up and every single note, it just rung, I mean, certain guitars have a very ringing characteristic to them. And if a seller is expecting you to drop $2,000 or $3,000 on an instrument, I mean, surely they expect that you're going to need to play it and hear it. Anybody that's serious, I guess that some people in the guitar collecting world just collect guitars and don't play them. But if I'm buying a potential instrument, it's something that I want to be able to play and hear. I want to hear dead spots. I want to hear fret buzz. So sure enough, the guy plugged it in and was playing it. He's like, there sounds like there's one little buzzy spot on the neck. And the guy was like, oh, no. He was like acting all sketchy and crap. He's like, oh, we're good. We've heard enough. Like, really? You got a frog in your pocket? You've heard enough? So he wouldn't let me play the guitar, which to me was, that's sketchy. It's like, well, this car here on the used car lot, bam, bam, he hits it, and like the fender falls off. Oh, don't you worry about that. We can put that back on. It's like the sketchy used car salesman that doesn't want you to test drive the car because he knows it's going to break down.
Do you want it or not?
So then the guy was like, well, do you want it or not? I was like, well, I want the guitar, but I don't think we're exactly seeing eye to eye here on the way this transaction is going to be handled. And he's like, all right. Well, he took the guitar and just put it back on the rack, and he just totally was not about me trying out the guitar. He didn't have an amplifier there for people to try the guitar out through. And then it's funny, the booth over from him had another guitar I was interested in. It was a Gibson ES 330 or a 329. It was a 70s era ES 335 style guitar, but that had the same type of single coil pickups in it that you see in like the Melody Maker.
And it had a maple top too, didn't it?
It had a maple top, and man, it was such a cool guitar. Yep. And I was going over there and checking it out. It was price reasonable. And see, a lot of Gibson players don't like those guitars like these because they like the humbuckers. I'm kind of a single coil sort of guy, so I thought, hey, that's a cool way to kind of scratch a 335 itch and have a cool single coil pickup guitar. So I gave up on the Guild and then decided, all right, we're going to go check out this this ES330. I think
I can't remember what it was. I think it was a 330.
It was such a gorgeous guitar, and it had those cool like 70s metal plates that they put on them. You know, they didn't really do that on any of the earlier 335s, but have that cool like metal control plate on the guitar, which I thought was kind of neat.
It was just super retro, man. It was just neat.
Retro,
it caught our eyes.
It was priced right. It was retro. It had the real deal case with it. So again, went over to the booth, and there's this guy that literally looks like he's holding down the chair with the weight of his body. Like the chair is going to float off if he gets up out of it. This guy must have been like 350 pounds. And look, you know, I get it, okay? You know, we all eat, we drink, you know, eventually we get some girth that we can't get rid of. I get it, okay? I'm not trying to shame the guy because he got some weight on him. But, you know, you don't have to get up to talk. Like, I tried to get his attention like 5 times. Like, hey, pal, like, hey, you got an amp that maybe I can check out this guitar? You know, I wasn't trying to be pushy. All I was trying to do is just ask if I could, you know, check out the guitar or have an amp to play through. And he had like 6 or 7 amps. He finally kind of turned over to me, and I think I saw like a little bit of sauerkraut fall out the side of his mouth. He was like, I ain't got no electricity over here to plug the amps in. So wait a minute, you come to a show to sell guitars and sell amps, but you don't let people play through your gear. It's just weird to me. Like, I don't see how they can sell anything like that.
Yeah, but see, the problem is that the odd thing with that statement was there was a line of small amplifiers that was at one. It was like a
it was the same booth where the guy was playing.
Yeah. No, not there. I'm talking about the same booth where that ES330 was.
Yes.
There was a small row of amps because we looked at one of those like rolling like a little jazz chords or something along those lines.
Yeah,
like, that's cool. And they had some amps plugged into an extension cord.
Yeah, but
and the extension cord's running into nowhere. It's like, what do you mean you don't have any electricity?
The guy said he didn't have power. I think that was just, you know, he just didn't want to deal with it. He wasn't doing it. So the thing is, look, I get it. If you're working a booth at a show, whether it's a gun show or a guitar show or a comic book show or video games or whatever you're dealing with, if you're having a bad day, just take a break and go walk around for a minute. But don't treat your customers like that.
My thing is, like, if I had a booth and I had a bunch of guitars and gear that I was trying to sell, I'd have stuff set up. I'd have the best amp that I had. I'd take
good pedals, a pedal board.
I'd take a vintage Blackface or something like that, so you had the best option there for people to test the stuff out with.
That's right.
You know, you want to sell guitars, you got to let people try them out. What do you mean? Oh, you can't try it out. Just are you want it or not?
That rubbed me the wrong way. It really rubbed me the wrong way. So we got looking around a little bit, and so we were on the way out. I'm thinking, you know, man, I wasn't like going out of my way to specifically purchase an instrument that day. I just, there were certain things that I was just going to let maybe jump out at me. I tried to go into the show with an open mind.
All right.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the guitars that we saw that were interesting. All right, one was that Ibanez Artist.
Yeah, one of them was an all maple Ibanez Artist, which was pretty cool.
There was
it had a flame maple top, and it had the old school like 70s retro white pick guard and all 70s.
That was one to kind of put in the middle bank there.
Yeah, that was
and then
cool.
Right around the corner, like Eric was checking out that Artist. He was like, okay, I'm going to keep this on my radar, and I'm going to come back and look at it. We run around the corner, and I bought a Kramer 450B a little while back from Guitar Center for pretty cheap, and had our local luthier fix it up. And it's this aluminum necked, basically like it's pretty much
like a Travis Bean, except with wood inserts on the neck instead of a.
It's a little bit lighter weight neck, but it's a solid aluminum neck with these 2 wooden, just routs, or these routs in it with these wood pieces on the back of the neck. And then it's got this like 5-piece body and these crazy old like humbucking style pickups and everything. It's just a neat guitar, a neat bass. But they've got a guitar version of it too. And this guy had kind of the higher end guitar version. Yeah, it was like, that is so cool. Like aluminum neck, heavy as crap, you know.
Yeah, and walnut side, super heavy. I mean, walnut's heavy.
We were walking around and we got separated. You know, Eric went up ahead and I was just busy like messing around with stuff. I found a table with all sorts of old electronics and crap. I was going through there, picking through and looking for neat little stuff. And man, it's just, but you know, these guys that don't want you to try out gear, it's just insane. Like I tried out a few basses, you know, stuff, and I mean, it wasn't really a big deal, but I don't get it. I don't understand. I
didn't really feel like anybody was truly overly super accommodating in the way that, I mean, it just seems to me like if I was selling gear, and look, I'm going to try to play devil's advocate here.
Was it the last day of the show? Because it was a Sunday, wasn't it?
It was a Sunday. So I'm going to try to play devil's advocate here. All right, you're a guitar dealer, and some guy just went and ate a bunch of greasy chicken and then wants to come by there and put his dirty dick beaters all over your $10,000 guitar, okay? Now, I can understand now, okay, if somebody wants to get his chicken fingers all over your $10,000 guitar, I can see where somebody would be like, all right now, you're just wasting time. Like, I know you have to like figure out the difference between the time wasters and the people that are there to buy, but you can't look at it that way. You have to treat every person that's looking at an instrument like they're going to buy one. So anyway, we got to walking further down the aisle, and I was feeling a little disappointed because I'm like, I'd really like to have something to take back with me and everything. And so we'd had a couple of strikeouts basically. We struck out on the 67 Guild Starfire. Well, he struck out because he's the one that didn't sell it. But I struck out on the 67. I struck out on it's like a 1973 S330. I struck out on that, which is fine. It's his loss. He's the one that's got to drag it back with him. I got to walking, and there was a booth kind of near the entrance of the show. There was this big booth, and they had it set up really nice. They had their instruments hanging up high on like these tall racks they brought in, and then they had like a couple of little amps, and they had a couple of little places you could sit, kind of like in the stool I'm sitting in right now, and plug in the amps and play them. Well, I got to look, and I'm like, well, heck, we were just about to leave, and I'm like, something told me, let's just take one more look through this booth right here. Well, a guy brought in a 1974 Fender Deluxe, which we will do a video on. I guess I'm giving away the story, but I did end up buying the guitar. But
anyway, you'll hear it again.
We'll get to that. So I look over, and there's this beat up 1974 Fender Deluxe. Looked like it's been through the 7th circle of hell. This thing looked like it'd been in every dirty, smoky bar in Texas since 1974. Like the guy literally bought the guitar, hung it in a booth, and injected the booth with cigarette smoke instantly. Like to put an instant cigarette smoke sheen on the guitar.
You open the case up, it's like, pow!
Oh yeah, you open up the case and it's like cancer. Like the inside of the case has cancer. Okay, so it was like that.
Thing is ugly.
So, it's ugly, but it's so awesome. So I got looking, and it's like, there's this 74 Fender Deluxe. Ash body, beautiful, in an ugly way, but beautiful guitar. And that's the one that has a Strat style neck, micro tilt 3-bolt on neck, 3 bolts, and it has the wide range PAF style or Seth Lover style wide range humbuckers with the different magnets and all. It's just a cool old school and early Fender guitar.
And those guitars are neat too. They've got kind of the Les Paul layout for the tone and volume controls. You got 2 volumes and 2 tones, 1 for each pickup.
Sure.
3-way and the whole 9 yards.
So,
such a neat guitar.
So I'm like, I didn't notice this. And the guy said, yeah, it wasn't priced. And the guy was like, yeah, a guy just came in and sold it to me. He's like, I just bought it. It's like, really? Like, so how much is it? He's like, well, it's, X amount. I'm not going to mention prices because I don't want people watching this video, 5 years later and thinking that this is the gospel. But he gave me the price, and I'm like, well, it seems a little high. We haggled a little bit on the price. Well, let's just say we eventually agreed on the price. He was willing to negotiate with me, and I was able to get the guitar. But the guy was like, yeah, man, sit down, check it out, play. There's an amp right there. There's a cord. Here's a stool to sit on. Do your thing. Play. Don't get, and he was like, hey, just don't play too loud. We don't want to, tick off too many people around us. But, you're welcome to turn it up, check it out, play through it. And I was able to inspect the electronics, listen for dead spots. And, of course, there's another thing that it told me. It was like, hey, this instrument is going to need a good solid neck reset. Yeah. I noticed there was some slop in the neck joint, which is common for 70s era Fenders. And then also, the frets were extremely worn. So I knew that the guitar would need a refret. But what those things give you is the tools to go into the negotiating process for the guitars where you can go, look, man, I understand, the price you're asking, it's fair, but I'm going to have to refret this thing. Look, the frets are played off of it. The neck's going to have to be reset. You have to know what you're buying. That's the whole moral of this video.
Else,
The whole moral of the story and the moral of our first experience at the Dallas at any guitar show, but specifically this one, is that you have to know what you're buying. And if a seller is not going to allow you to truly know what exactly you're negotiating for, what you're buying, then screw them. They're not worth your time. And I ran into 2 people that weren't worth my time, but one guy that was there to sell stuff. He wasn't running a museum. That's a whole nother aspect of it too, is the whole museum aspect.
We've talked about that on the other channel too.
Yeah.
Like, the guy with the Puma broom handle, it's like, oh, you collectors.
Yeah.
And like asking full price for something that's got a Puma engraved on the side of it. I'm
Sure.
like, really?
Yep.
Dude, you collectors.
I know.
Some guys, I guess, they just buy guitars because they like the way they look or they want them as an investment. They hang them up in a room. and that's it. They don't really play or anything like that, you know?
Well,
I mean, I don't know.
You're right. And another thing that I noticed too, it seems like a lot of people are really just running museums. Like you get those museum people that basically, you know, every guitar they have is super highly collectible. Like they don't have a single guitar in their booth that's under $20,000.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard to fathom for some people, but you get into some of the vintage Fenders, yeah, you're talking a 59 Tele or a 57 Strat or a 61 Strat or something that's in really, really good condition. It's a condition thing. Yeah, you're talking 20, 30, sometimes 50, even upwards of $100,000 for one instrument. And yes, at this show, they had $100,000 guitars. Just right there,
You know,
there it is.
and the crazy thing to me is like the price on Les Pauls. You know, I'm not a huge Les Paul guy. Eric definitely is, and I mean, both of us are more like single coil guys. But they had like modern like kind of custom shop Les Pauls that were like 2004 vintage that were $11,000. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't get it. They're
Yeah.
beautiful instruments. I mean, like just figured tops, mahogany bodies, the whole 9 yards, just gorgeous. You know, all the body binding, the whole 9 yards, but 11 grand.
Well, some sellers. Okay, so you notice like modern Les Pauls going for stupid money, $10,000 plus guitars. I'm not doubting they're good instruments, but there's no way I'm paying 10 grand for a Les Paul that's only 10 years old. That's crazy, especially when you can take 10 grand and you can buy a Les Paul Special, or you can buy a lot of cool vintage Gibson guitars for well south of that kind of money. I mean, that's just crazy. Another thing that I noticed too is then on the other end of the spectrum, you had some people that it's like they would look at internet prices and they would price everything just straight up like 30% higher than whatever's on Reverb. Like they would go on Reverb and go, all right, this guitar on Reverb is X amount of dollars. Increase it 30%, put it out on the rack. Like Reverb is such a powerful tool now. Yeah. A lot of these dealers and individuals that are selling instruments, they go straight up off of Reverb prices. And Reverb has really changed the way. I'm not promoting Reverb. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that Reverb has changed the way that people buy, sell, and trade musical instruments because they pretty much share all their data right out there. I mean, you can search prices on their website. See, eBay quit doing that a long time ago. They used to allow you to check completed listings to know what those items that you're potentially selling have sold for over a course of time. And then things like Gunbroker and eBay both also realized that data was valuable and they stopped sharing it with people. Reverb has done the opposite. They share that data openly because they know that their marketplace controls the market and controls the perception that people have on the value of musical instruments. So the issue is now anybody can be a guitar expert. So you end up having another guy at the show, which I specifically spoke to about this. He said that his grandfather passed away, left a bunch of instruments, a bunch of amps and guitars and random things, and he brought in a bunch of instruments to the show to sell for his family. I guess he was an executor of his grandfather's will, and nobody in the family played, so obviously they liquidate the assets of the estate, which is fine, you know, whatever. So I asked him, I'm like, hey, well, you know, I noticed your prices here, pretty, I guess, well in line for the most part. How'd you come up with the prices? Oh, I checked Reverb.com, and these prices are pretty much ripe Reverb prices. I'm like, well, are you willing to negotiate on price on any of these items? No, I'm really not, because if somebody on the internet will pay that for it, then I'm not going to take any less than what the guy on the internet will pay. I'm like, well, then why are you at the show? I mean, why not just take pictures of them all and list them on Reverb and sell them on Reverb? Why even go to the show and try to heckle people when people are going to pay $35 to get in the door to come walk around and buy these instruments? You're going to have to be a little more reasonable with the amount of money you expect to get out of these instruments.
I mean, like on Reverb, you know, there's some guitars and basses stuff that I've seen on there. They float on the site for the longest time, but then people can put in offers. Like, hey, there's an offer. Like if you're watching an item, you get an email if somebody put in an offer on it. It's like, hey, it might go soon.
Right.
You know, but you can still offer, and a seller can accept it or, you know, decline it. It doesn't matter. It's the exact same thing as negotiating in person. But the only caveat is you don't get to actually see and feel and touch the instrument and play it.
Correct.
But, dude, some of those people at the show, though, it's just crazy.
Well, they just
their
don't.
Mentality of
they
it.
do not. I don't even think it's that they don't understand the concept of haggling or negotiating. They are just completely unwilling to negotiate. And you know, I noticed that there was definitely a separation of dealers at the show, where some of them were just hard line, like this is what I have to have, period, and you can walk away, I don't care. all the way to, hey, that's a cool amp. There's no price on it. How much is it? And the guy whips out his phone, looks it up on Reverb, $3,500. When the highest reverb price he could find was $28. And they're just trying to take you for a ride. And that's all it is. I mean, like, I've been looking at brown face Fender Deluxe amps. I mean, those amps are pretty freaking expensive, okay? They're not cheap, I get it. But, you know, this guy had a Fender Deluxe just sitting there, a brown face, and it looked pretty clean. I was like, and it didn't have a price on it. And, you know, the ones that don't have prices on them are pretty much the ones you have to assume that they're probably going to try to take you for a ride on, or they don't want to sell it, okay? And that's okay. But if you don't want to sell it, don't bring it to the show.
Yep.
You know, or, so basically he wound up saying, all right, well, it's $3,500, which of course is stupid high price for that amp. I mean, you can get them for $2,000, which is still a lot of money, but it's not $3,500.
Yep.
So I guess the point I want to make in this video is understand what you're buying. Always haggle and deal with the people and be respectful. You know, don't lowball people. Nobody likes to be lowballed. Don't treat somebody like you wouldn't want to be treated. You wouldn't want to be lowballed. You wouldn't want to be cussed at or whatever. You know what I mean? Just the thing is, be respectful. State why you want the item for the lower price and show a willingness that you are seriously interested in the item, and test the item and look at it. And if they let you do all that and work with you, then that's probably somebody you want to do business with. Now, if it's some guy that's got sauerkraut hanging out of his mouth and obviously does not want to be there, then don't give him your time. He doesn't deserve your time if he's not even willing to help you at all, not even willing to get up. Like, that just chaffs me.
I know, man. You know, I got separated from Eric, like I said, and most of these things happened when I was away. He told me what happened. I'm like, what are you talking about? Let's go over here and look at this thing.
Oh my God. But, and if Chad would have been there, he'd been like, he would have like got pissy with
like,
it.
what? I'm not very good with that kind of stuff, but like when Eric was checking out that telly, you know, I played it a little bit. And I'm like, boy, these things, it's like almost a fretless guitar. I mean, the frets were like
straight
gone.
Up worn.
You try to bend the note, it goes,
nothing.
It just goes out.
It's just straight wood, no frets.
I walked back over to this, what was that big, it was a big old booth. They had like...
Warrior?
No, it wasn't Warrior. God, oh
Warrior had
God.
a booth. Man, it was awesome.
Oh man, those basses are freaking amazing. They're just works of art. But this other booth, it wasn't like Mac Daddy's or like, what was that place called? It was something Bratz. What was that place called? I'll think of it in a minute, but they had a huge selection of like all kinds of guitars. They had custom shop Fenders. That was the place they had that Rory Gallagher custom shop.
Yeah, I took a picture of that guitar.
It was
pretty
something
neat.
Bratz or whatever, but it was like a local Texas shop, I guess, or whatever the case was.
They had quite a few instruments.
The one thing that I took away from the show that was really cool was to be able to try out a bunch of instruments that either I'd never seen before, you know, stuff that I'm kind of interested in like an electric acoustic fretless bass or whatever, and I found a few that were kind of interesting. And this place had it was I can't even think of the name of it now.
I know so many like custom makers that make stuff.
Well, anyways, I'll think of it in a minute maybe, but anyways, beautiful like flame maple top, you know, ebony board. It was lined fretless and everything, and it had one knob on it, and it had piezo pickup in the bridge. And I just walked over to the lady and I said, hey, would you mind if I check out this instrument over here? She said, oh yeah, by all means, there's an acoustic amp right over there, just plug it right up. I'm like, okay.
That's somebody that wants to sell something.
I sat down and was just checking it out. I mean, this thing was, you know, pretty high price. I mean, it was a handmade instrument, but I got to try it out, you know, and really kind of go through the tonal options and everything and just see how I liked it. There was another acoustic that I tried out, and there was that one booth, I can't think of their name either, but they had these custom acoustics that they made like, you know how like they carve bowls, you know, out of like big old blocks of wood?
That guy had some killer stuff, and it was priced pretty reasonable for a full custom.
They were like there was
a couple $1,000.
Yeah, there was a full custom bass, and it basically is like these two halves. It's like they carved two bowls and they put them together, and there was no square edges on the guitar. It was just round, and the bodies were just beautiful. They had all the burling and everything in the wood. But I played one just out in the open. I didn't plug it up, but it wasn't very acoustically sound. It didn't sound very good. You know, I tried one of the guitars. I was just strumming on a little bit, and it just didn't have that nice ring to it, you know. And that's one thing, like Eric mentioned earlier, with the when you're shopping for guitars and stuff, you want to strum a chord and you want to hear the guitar. You know, there's some companies that would say that, oh, well, the acoustics really don't matter, it's all in the electronics.
Bull crap.
You know, that's like Alembic has that kind of thing. And like, I've got an MTD, and, you know, Michael Tobias, he always has gone by the, you know, by the standard of a guitar has to be, or a bass, has to be acoustically sound first. If it doesn't sound good acoustically, I mean, then it's probably not going to sound all that great amplified, because you're only amplifying, you know, the good or the bad. You know, the big
Some guitars just ring, man, and you know that's what I go on when I buy guitars. Is I'm looking for an instrument I can pick up and it just really rings and gives me a bit back. So really cool stuff. We wanted to just kind of share some of our experiences with the show. Obviously, I did end up buying the 74 Deluxe. I was able to work out a good deal with the guy. He was happy. I was happy. It's over getting refretted right now. You know, the frets are shot. It's being refretted as we speak. So once we get the instrument back, we'll...
Rob Allen.
Yeah,
that's what that bass was. Oh,
cool.
So awesome.
Yeah, it is nice.
MB2. Oh.
Yeah. But, you know, I did wind up getting the 74. Once we get it back from the refret, we'll do a video on it. We just want to share our experiences because maybe somebody out there can be helped by this type of thing. You know, save yourself some grief, save yourself some heartache, and just understand what you're kind of getting into when you go to these shows. Mm-hmm. I kind of knew getting into it when I was going into this show. I kind of knew in the back of my mind, okay, I've been to these types of shows before. Even though it's not a guitar show I've been to these types of shows, and I know how people are, and I know how dealers work, and it is exactly the same type of thing you see in any other aspect of collecting, or let's just call it interest or whatever.
They don't do those kind of shows around here. Like, we've never seen a guitar show around the Atlanta area.
There's only been, in the last 10 years, I think I've seen one.
One?
Yeah, it's like a Cobb Civic Center.
They said they do them all the time out there in Texas and the Midwest. There's guitar shows all over the place. It was something new to us, but the biggest thing, like I said, I took away from it was being able to try out a wide variety of instruments and just see some interesting things, like literally like museum quality pieces that you won't just see every day in your local shop. You can't go to Guitar Center and see a 52 Telly that looks like it's been through hell and back. You know?
Yeah, or see one that looks like it's brand new.
I know, like literally a closet classic.
Yeah,
you know? I mean,
now that is one good thing about the show too. Even if you're going to just look, even if you're not going to buy per se, let's say you are either in the market to be, you know, looking for an old instrument, or maybe you are looking to sell an old instrument that you already have. Sometimes, you know, one of those events is a good way to walk around and go, all right, well, this is what this guy wants. That's what that guy wants. You could walk around with a notepad and go, all right.
And then you go home and listen on reverb.
This guy's asking this amount for his. This guy's asking that amount for his. And you can kind of at least research the market a little bit. But there's a big difference between the prices that somebody can just put on a sticker and the prices somebody will actually pay.
Yep.
You know, I found a 1959 Strat for sale locally, and I got to talking to the guy a little bit, and it's a neat Strat. It's a factory hardtail with a sunburst body that looks well worn, very well worn, and it's a neat guitar. But the guy wanted an exuberant amount of money for it. And I sent him a message, and I'm like, look, pal, I mean, like the internet prices and the price that someone will actually pay are two different things. I mean, people have to remember that. It's just like any other thing. There's a realistic price that is the real price, and then there's the, hey, this is the price I'm going to put it out in case some dummy comes by and just doesn't argue.
There's a lot of cases, too, where, like, you get talking to somebody, and it's like, yeah, well, I got this old guitar that I want to sell and everything. It's like you ask them what it is, they tell you, and then all of a sudden you put forth a little interest. You know, it kind of piques your interest, and you seem interested in it, and then they start doing more research on it, like, oh, well, I don't know, I'll probably let it go for such and such, but then they jack the price up like 2 or 3 times.
Well,
it's like, I did a little research on it, I'm going to have to raise the price on it a little bit. I can't let it go for that.
Well, let me tell you something funny. So this happened to me recently. So I found a guy online. I'm not going to say where because I don't want to give away my sources. All right. But I was looking around. I found a guy online that had a 1963 Fender Stratocaster that his dad passed away and left him. And I messaged the guy. I'm like, hey, man, cool guitar. You know, it looks pretty legit. How much do you want for it? He's like, well, I don't really know a whole lot about it. I just need to get rid of it. It was my dad's, and I don't have any interest in keeping it. I don't play. My family doesn't play. We just want to liquidate it and move on with life. And I'm like, well, look, I mean, these things are, they've got some value. I was like, sight unseen, I'll give you X, I'm not going to say what amount, but I gave him a dollar figure. I'm like, hey, I'll give you X amount of dollars for it. He's like, oh, well, that's a very fair offer. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And, when someone's not familiar with music equipment and then you throw out, let's just say 1959 Stratocaster money, and people are going to be like, wow, that's a bit of money, especially if they're not familiar with them. So he's like, well, let me talk to my wife. So I heard back from him about 6 hours later. He's like, yeah, well, I talked to my wife, and she made me research it more. And there's this website online that has them for $50,000, and I think your offer is a lowball offer, and I think I'm going to keep it and sit on it and try to get the maximum amount of money out of it. See, back in the 70s and 80s, or back even in the 90s, when all this crap wasn't even a thing and people just weren't as internet savvy, yeah, you could go to a yard sale and buy a Fender Princeton for $200 like my dad did. Or you could go...
There wasn't any internet.
Well, right, but you could go to a yard sale and score an old Fender amp for next to nothing. Or you could go to a flea market and score an old Fender guitar where the guy just don't know what he's got. But now it's just so much harder to get a good deal out in the wild, so to speak. Because all these people, they want to use the internet as the gospel for the prices, and that's just not realistic.
You definitely got to shop around. I mean, we would have had to go to 5 or 6 different shops around the Atlanta area to see pretty much everything that we saw at the guitar show.
Heck, to see a tenth of it.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is one thing. Anyway, I know this video is getting long, but we wanted to kind of talk about it a little bit. There are a lot of cool things to look at the guitar show. If you're a guitar enthusiast, even if you don't want to buy, I mean, $35 in my opinion is kind of a small price to pay to go in and look at all that cool technology under one roof. And you can really see like an entire era of guitars, all the way from early stuff made in the 20s, all the way to the most modern luthier-made bass or guitar that you'll see now. So it is a great way to take kind of a walk through time and see all the different guitar technology and effects and pedals, as well as amps and stuff. So it is cool. I'm going to say that my experience was not 110% positive, but I would say that I did walk away from the show being satisfied and happy and feeling like I got a great deal on a cool instrument. And I dealt with a person that I felt was very, very cool to work with and very friendly and very accommodating to my needs. So there are people at the shows that are there to sell things. You just have to find them and talk to them right, and you'll find that you can actually come out looking pretty decent.
Put on your thick skin, boy.
Yep, you're going to have some thick skin to walk through that place. All right, anyway, guys, thank you for watching today's video. Remember, we post every Monday and every Friday here on Guitarsenal. Make sure you click subscribe. Make sure you have the notification bell clicked. We might, I haven't talked to Chad about this yet. In fact, I'm talking to him about it now. We may wind up trying to put up a few more videos here and there. Maybe not every single week. Right now, we're doing 2 a week. We're doing 2 a week right now, but we're kind of like letting see what the demand is like and everything like that. And we're putting up 2 a week for now, but we may occasionally pop up an extra Tone Talk or something here and there just to have some extra stuff in the pipeline. Maybe we'll try to do a couple a month and post them on like a Wednesday, like maybe every other Wednesday or something. I was going to talk to him about that, but I figured the camera's rolling.
Well, here we go.
Yeah. But I mean, what do you think? Like maybe every other Wednesday, we just make it like Tone Talk Wednesday.
What do you guys think?
Every second and last Wednesday of every month or something. And
leave
that
a comment below with what you
yeah.
think the schedule should be and how much work I should be doing.
Guys, thanks for watching today's video. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys. I don't know when this is being posted, but we'll either see you on Monday or Friday. Have a good one.
See you guys.
Thank you.